I guess that was around before Overwatch had really gotten big. It was probably like closer to the start of Overwatch, end of Team Fortress 2, just because there was a period where I'd like failed out on a lot of my college classes. It was I was like skipping classes and shit like that too. And some of it was because of like esports. Like I was like putting way too much focus in that. But I'd say a lot more of it was just I don't know if I want to use the term depressed, but like I just could not like motivate myself. Which again, what
was the lead up to that? What was the lead up that got you to that point?
Damn, we're really gonna get deep. Okay, well, I mean,
it is called Deep Dives into the Minds of Esports. To be fair,
it was around that time that I guess I got with my current girlfriend, who is also trans, which I've not really brought up before. And there's some people who know it. I don't really keep it like that much of a secret, but so it was around that time that I guess I was also finding out that I was bi, and so there was like I was like raised like a Christian. You know, my parents were pretty religious. And so I had like a lot of things like trying to just figure myself out, because up until that point I'd never really even had thoughts about like anything like that. I'd never really had a girlfriend or anything like that. I was just doing my thing. So to go from that to being like, wait a second, am I bi and all this other stuff? And then so it was like a mix of that and like not being sure who I was or like anything like that. There was just like a lot of stuff going on for like 18, 19-year-old me. And it took me a while to like get comfortable with everything and figure that all out. But my parents were like really supportive. Like when I brought it up to them eventually, like because like they had noticed I'd like failed some classes and like done all that, and like I said, I was like kind of depressed at the time trying to like figure everything, like because I didn't know how I felt. And then eventually, you know, I talked with them about them, tell them like, hey, you know, this is what's going on, and they were really nice about all of that. So it was probably just like a mix of all of that, and then also, like I said, just trying to balance esports in school and like a bunch of other things like that. You know, it was a really weird time for me.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Deep Dives into the Minds of Esports. My name is Blake Panashevitz, and I am really excited for my next guest to be on this show. He is a famous content creator / streamer who has been previously on he was a previous Team Fortress 2 player who moved into Overwatch, playing for teams like Luminosity, TSM, Complexity, NRG, Congarna, and lastly, Grunto Esports. Please let me introduce Anthony Ballo, maybe better known as Harbleu. Welcome to the show.
What up? Wait, you know what? We had just talked about the pronunciation, but yeah, we'll let it slide.
No, listen, you can flame the shit out of me for that.
I went through all like elementary school, middle school, the teachers and everything mispronouncing it, so we're over it. But
so my last name's actually my last name's actually Panashevitz, and so like the amount of times that people butcher my last name,
I'm not going to try and pronounce that. I'm just going to let that go.
So I feel you there, and I apologize because it's a struggle having hard last names. But yours looks easy. Yours is deceiving.
It's deceiving. Yeah, the ball. People are like, oh, it's just Ballo, but no, whatever.
Like someone sees my name and they're like, oh fuck me, I'm just screwed. And they see yours like, oh, I got this. I'm confident, and it's just like, no, you're not. As much as you want to believe that. So I like to start it off pretty easy, this show, before we get into like the deep stuff that is you as a person. One of the cool things about you is we're actually very close to the same age, which I did not know this. You're 26, according to what I found, which is fairly old for esports. I'm actually older than you, even though I look 12. It's unfortunate.
So when I shave, also we're in the same boat here. Once you go clean shaven, it's like a whole different ball game. But I got a nice little thing growing out. It's looking all right.
You're good. So, one of the easy questions I wanted to ask you, do you think age is an important factor in esports?
I mean, yes, in the sense that, you know, I think any of like the new, especially in esports, like teams and orgs, I think are always looking for like that new hot upcoming player. Mm-hmm. So like teams are just like inherently looking for like that like 16, 17-year-old upcoming all-star, just because I mean, age in the esports, just like in any other sports, I think as you do get up there, you know, eventually your reaction times will start to diminish. Yeah. But I do think that isn't until like you're probably in like your 30s, because you see a bunch of Counter-Strike players who are like in their late 20s who are still like popping off. It is rare in Overwatch though, but I think that's a lot to do with like honestly, one of the big things is it is really hard to stay like motivated after having done esports and all this for so long. Because I've been doing it. Let's see, I went to my first tournament when I was, I think, 16. So I've been doing this for 10 years now, and it's like I don't think it's as much to do with like reaction times and everything declining at around this age as it is just like a lot of players get like burnt out. You know, you've been doing it for like 6-7 years, waking up, practicing, doing all that. I think like for a lot of people, they just get like they can't bring themselves to keep putting in like the effort they need to when you have, like I said, like there's that young 17, 18-year-old who's like fresh, still in high school, doesn't have to worry about like life stuff. And they're able to just like grind like 12, 13 hours a day. So I'd say age matters some, but I think it matters less than like orgs and stuff like that would think. But it is also like on an individual basis because there, again, like I said, there's some players who are older who just like can't bring themselves to like put in that same amount of practice that they need to, just because again they've been doing it for so long that it's like, well, you know, I'm too burnt from doing this. But I think in terms of like physical, like, you know, not something preventing you, I think like 26, 27, 28, that like there's no real difference from like 18, 19 in terms of like reactions or anything. But there might be, you know, maybe tests or something would show differently.
There are. It's actually, I think it's after age 23, you lose 0.05 milliseconds of reaction speed every year. Oh. Or something like that, like on average. So,
I mean, for Overwatch specifically also, it's not like a game like Counter-Strike or something where like fast reactions are a must. Like there's so many roles like tank and support where... You know, aim doesn't matter quite as much. Reaction times don't matter quite as much. It's a lot more like smart positioning and like just understanding the game and playing smart in those roles. So even if it is reaction time some, for a game like Overwatch, I don't think it's, unless you're like a tracer DPS player, then it might matter some. But for a lot of roles, it's not quite as important.
Do you still love Overwatch? Do you still have like the same love for Overwatch that you did kind of?
Surprisingly, yes. And I'm not sure if like. That's weird for me because I talk about this on stream a lot where it's like, you know, even when I feel like I'm one of the few streamers of this game or like pros or whatever who play the game when I'm not streaming or not like practicing just because I enjoy the game. And like you see like a lot of other players who play it who like seem like they're having to like force themselves or who seem like they're almost like just hating life as they're playing it. So, you know, they'll be like sighing constantly, like like moaning at stuff. It's like, yeah, Overwatch can have its moments where the game does suck. Like it, you know, when you get like a game with like a Torb main who's just like jumping off the map, or you get like other stuff like that. Like it definitely has its moments where it's like, wow, this isn't that fun. But there's, as a whole, I definitely say I would enjoy it still. There's just like, especially like in off tank in the current meta, like Zarya's pretty decent, Hammond's really good, Hog's okay in some situations, and Sigma, I'm picking him up for my hero pool. He's pretty cool too. So in my role specifically, it's like there's a lot I can, you know, it's not like I'm only playing like Brig. Like there's definitely been metas where I haven't enjoyed it as much. So I guess that you could say it's kind of like meta dependent, but in the current meta for off tank, it's pretty darn fun. So I've been definitely enjoying it.
Do you classify yourself as a pro player, or do you classify yourself as a content creator / streamer?
So I've always considered myself like a pro first and like a streamer second. I guess in other people's eyes, they probably consider me more of like a streamer content creator right now, just because it's been a while since I've been like on a top level team. I was on, again, like as of like a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, I was on like Grunto, Chicken Contendies. And, you know, that was a contenders team. We made playoffs the one season. I was 3-0 on them before, you know, I left, or the whole situation. So it's like, I've definitely proven myself recently that I can do well in contenders and easily hold my own in that. And that was before roll queue and before I felt like the meta really favored me. So now, like with all that added on, I feel like it's even better for me personally.
I guess for me, kind of looking at you, I would say, do you want to continue in the, like, if you were to ask, like, if I were to say, oh, is Harbleu a content creator or a pro player? If I were to ask you this question, do you want to continue in the pro circuit and keep moving your way up? That would, right there, that classifies you as like a pro player, because you've obviously got professional experience and you want to keep working on it.
Well, it was also, I never really planned on becoming like a streamer or content creator. So when I first joined Complexity way back at like the start of Overwatch. Like most other teams, we had contracts that said, "Hey, you got to stream this much a week or this much a month," and it was like a collective as a team. And no one else in the team really wanted to stream or felt comfortable doing it. And they were all like, "Hey, Harb, you should do it. We think you'd be good at it. We think you'd be kind of funny, all that." And I was like, "Well, I guess." And I already like dabbled in streaming a little bit back in Team Fortress 2, but again, I like never plans of like getting into it for like being a job or like anything like that. And then, so I started doing it because of like contract reasons. And then I got like hosts by some of the other like bigger Overwatch players at the time, like Tavik, Time, who I remember, were like two of the first ones, and that helped mine grow some. And then it got to a point where I was like, well, I was working on Geek Squad still at the time at Best Buy, and it was getting to a point where streaming was making more than my normal job. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll do this for a bit and see how this goes. And this is while I was still competing also. At that time, I had moved to like NRG and other stuff like that. So like I said, I never really planned on doing this streaming aspect, but I'm glad I did it. It's definitely fun, like having people come in and just be able to chat and like shoot the shit with them. But I still do consider myself like a pro first, even though I haven't been like on a Owl team or a top team in a bit. Mm-hmm. But I mean, that's why I've been practicing Owl Season 3 dreams. So we'll see.
I feel that as well. So I'm there with you. Kind of looking at your life, I want to delve more into like you as a person and what it was like kind of growing up for you. So first of all, you have one brother, right?
Yes. Okay. Well, two technically. One full brother and one like half brother on my dad's side.
I count the other one too.
Okay, then two. I got two brothers.
Okay. Any other siblings?
Tim and Nicholas. What was that?
Do you have any other siblings or just the two?
Just the two.
Where do you fall in age groups then?
I'm the youngest. Let's see. My half brother Tim, he's in his 40s now, I think. Jesus. And then my other brother is 2 years older than me, so he's 28 right now. His birth, 28. So wait, yes, I'm 26. I got it. Yeah. I can do math.
Yeah, I'll be 28 in January. So
okay, Jesus,
feels good. I know, right? All this, like, I'm 2 years younger. Like, Jesus Christ, so old.
That's why I'm used to being. That's the weird thing in esports is like.
You're older than most people.
I still remember back in Team Fortress 2, I was always the young one on the team. Yeah. I remember like on my first like championship team in that, I was again 16 at the time. And I think I had some teammates who were like 21, 22, which to me, age in esports really isn't that big of a thing. I think like as long as you get along with your teammates, then that's what matters. Now I will say age can sometimes make that a little bit harder. Like if you have like, I've been on teams in the past in Overwatch where, I'm like the old guy and the rest of the team's like 18, 19. And it can be, I guess, in a way, sometimes a little hard to like relate to certain things. But, like on my most recent team, Chicken Contendies, I think the average age was like 19, 20. But in as a whole, we got along like great on that team. So again, age doesn't mean everything, I think, in esports in terms of like team environment. But it definitely can mean something, but I don't think it's like that big of a deal.
Yeah. So what was it like growing up? Like, where did you grow up, first of all? Where are you from?
Virginia, born and raised. Shout out to Virginia.
Virginia. What's Virginia like? I think I've only been, Roanoke's in Virginia, I think, right? Roanoke?
Oh, yeah. Roanoke, they got the places, Fredericksburg, that's kind of around where I grew up, but in the summers, it's hot as heck. It's humid. You kind of just want to stay indoors and play video games. So it lends itself to the environment of staying indoors. But, winters get a little snow here and there. I like the people there. Like, Virginia's one of those weird states where, like, you have Northern Virginia and Southern Virginia. And Northern Virginia is, like, super, like, progressive, like, like you would think, like, a lot of cities. And then you got Southern Virginia, which is literally the South. So it's like it's like a state where you literally have a mix of both. But I enjoyed it. I plan on moving back east pretty soon. I'm in Washington State right now. So I'm not sure if I'm going to move back to Virginia, but like it was definitely, I enjoyed being raised there. I had a really good childhood. So.
Okay. So talk to me about your childhood. Obviously, like I've already kind of like the research that I did with you, your dad seemed like an amazing human being, and I'm so sorry that he passed away. And I do want to talk about him just a little bit because he like all the stuff that I found about him, he just seems fucking cool as shit. Like legitimately one of the coolest people I think I've ever got to like hear about so it sounds like you had a really good childhood. You mentioned that you grew up. Did you grow up with your dad then primarily?
Oh yeah, no. But I mean, my parents were both together. Like they were. I mean, they were literally as good of parents as I could have asked for. Like they in like my entire time growing up, like they were like hands-on enough to like, help raise me and like help like mold me into who I am, I guess. But they were also like let me grow on my own and like do my own thing some. So it was like, and just like they always like took us out to like do a lot, especially when I was like younger, like 6, 7. We'd always go to parks always, or we'd like go on like these trips all the time. Amusement parks, all that stuff. So it's like, and so I mean, they just helped like me grow with that a lot.
Your dad was obviously involved with the military, and then he worked for like I think the FBI and the White House. But I never heard about your mom. What did your mom do?
She used to, before she got married and like had us, she also worked at like a bigger company. But then once she had my brother and then had me, she wanted to like be more at home with us. So once we were around like 6 or 7, she started getting working in like the school system also. So she was originally a cafeteria worker, like a lunch lady at the school I went to. So I'd be able to see her there sometimes, which was actually really cool.
Oh, she kept her eyes on you then.
It wasn't that sense. She just did it because, she enjoyed being around kids. Because after she did that, she then became a preschool teacher. And then after that, now she works as like a bus monitor. So she's like on the bus to make sure like the kids don't act up or stuff like that. So she's gone like through different like jobs within the school system, which is pretty cool. But yeah, my dad was always, he was originally in like way back. He was in like the Secret Service and then FBI, and then he like moved up the ranks in that. And then eventually he retired from that and became a school bus driver. Which he was doing the most recently. And he was doing more of that just like for fun on the side because he had already like made a decent amount for like the FBI and everything. But yeah, he did like a bunch of different cool military jobs like that.
So was he, I have a lot of military in my family. Was he like the strict military or was
Not
he
at all. No, I wouldn't say so at all. I mean, he was strict like when he needed to be, but not strict if you think about like, get up and do this. Like having like strict stuff like that. No, not at all. But which I enjoyed because like I said, they were strict and like firm with me when they needed to be, but they also definitely gave me like the space I needed to like grow as a person and like become who I am. So they were like really good about all that.
Yeah. So, what was school like for you? What type of kid were you growing up? Were you like the little rebel? Were you just the computer person?
I went through my punk phase of all that stuff.
You went to Fall Out Boy and Green Day.
A bit of all that. That was in our time. I don't know what they'd have these days, but yeah, around that stuff. But I was always like an A/B student. So like my parents, I always got like good enough grades where my parents like never really got on me that often about that sort of stuff. But I guess, let's see. I was always like a little bit of like the quieter one in school. Not like I didn't have like friends or anything like that. Like I definitely had like a good little circle of friends, but I was never like, the loud popular one who had like the giant friend circle and knew everyone. I had like my close circle of friends and I was okay with that. Like I didn't care about being the popular one. I cared about, hanging out with who I wanted to, and then getting home and playing video games.
That's because you're so charismatic too. That's what I like. I could have like. Is that something that you grew into later on more so? I
would definitely say so. I think if like I go back and watch like even some of my like early Overwatch streams, I think like I definitely seem a lot more almost like nervous, I guess, but not exactly that word. But like I'd say streaming and just getting older has made me like more comfortable with myself, and also just I guess being able to like project how like my thoughts are and everything. So I would definitely say I definitely wasn't always like this in middle school and high school. I was definitely a lot more shy and like quiet some. Not that I was like super quiet, but I definitely wasn't like near as comfortable just like talking about shit and going on about stuff. So it was definitely something that as I got older and got to like streaming more and all this, that I became like more comfortable talking about just things.
Were you into sports or anything when you were going through school?
Yes, I actually. So I played soccer a lot. Like my parents got me into that when I was really young, like probably around like 6 or 7. I did that for a long while, and then that was actually my first job. I actually became a soccer referee when I think I was 14 still. So I was young as heck. I was refereeing some games where the kids were almost as old as me. Like I was like a 15-year-old doing like 13-year-old games, but it paid really well for a first job. You hear like a lot of people working at like McDonald's and stuff. Listen, if you're someone trying to get a first job, and you're semi-active, a sports like refereeing can pay a lot. I was getting like $40-50 an hour for some of these games, which for like 14, hell, for anyone that's pretty decent.
Yeah,
but,
I know. I'm like,
but yeah, it was so yeah, I did a lot of soccer. And I got like a little bit of like football and stuff, but I'd say mostly it was like soccer for me.
Did you keep soccer up throughout like all of your elementary, high school, or when did you drop it?
I did a lot of sports up until high school, and then in high school is actually around when Team Fortress 2 came out, which was the first game I'd played competitively. And originally I got into that like casually, but then once I started like practicing for it for tournaments, which I think was around like sophomore or junior year, it was around then that I just started putting more of my time into like esports, even though I guess I wouldn't really call Team Fortress 2 esports. I guess it was tournaments and stuff. But
I think it's still qualified. It esports in the way esports is now.
Yeah, because there was like no money to be made from it. Like if we went to a tournament and got first place, I got maybe like $300 or $400, which we also had to pay for like our own flights and had to pay for like our own hotels. It's not like tournaments these days, but it was still something that I was passionate in and wanted to like put more of my time in, which in retrospect, I'm glad I did because it got me to where I am today. So I'm glad I did stay at home and play video games.
Were your parents okay with that? Was that something that they didn't really care about? Or because I mentioned like looking for the outside, like you see someone who is in sports, doing well in school, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I just want to stay home and play video games all the time, and I don't want to do sports anymore.
So my grades actually did take a little bit of a hit when I first started getting into like esports more, like because a lot of the times you're playing like on East Coast. I remember we had scrims, they would go from like normally 10 to like 12, so I'd be staying up like a little bit late, and then I'd have school and I'd be like kind of tired in school. This is not like I was getting like D's and F's. I was still getting like I was getting A's, B's, more C's though than before, but like I still graduated high school with honors, so like I'm sure if my grades would have slipped even more, then they probably would have let me hear it more. But like I said, my parents were pretty hands off, where like as long as I got my stuff done, and like they didn't really care how I spent my free time. And once they saw like how passionate I was in it, and saw that like, because my first tournament I went to, I was 16, like I said, and my dad actually came out with it. He flew out on the flight with me because I'd never been like anywhere. Again, I was 16. I'd never been like anywhere on my own like that. So my dad actually came to that tournament. And like he watched me play at it, and I won that one. And like when he saw like how much it meant to me, and like how like passionate I was about it, they like were definitely like understanding of it, and they thought it was cool too. Like my mom would always follow all the tournaments. She would always like ask me like, oh, where can I watch it? Oh, where can I see the results and stuff like that. So it's not like so it's not like I was just doing my own thing. Like they were also invested in it and thought it was really cool. So yeah, no, they I mean, as I got older, they definitely were like, maybe more hesitant on like being sure about it. Like when Overwatch first came out, I was originally like going to go back to college and like finish up my degree. So I had to like make the decision, and I ended up talking with them. I was like, hey, there's this new game coming out. It's by a big developer. I think I can be really good at it. I would like to try and like put all my effort into this for a bit and see how it goes. And if it doesn't work out, then I'll go back to college and finish that. And they were okay with that, which, at that point I was like 23, 24. So I was getting a little bit older. So to have them like give me that space and also like give me that encouragement and be like, okay, yeah, go ahead with it, was really cool of them. And, again, I guess it's worked out pretty well so far. So
yeah. So looking at as you were kind of getting older and your grades slipped a little bit, but you still graduated with honors. Towards like the upper ends of like high school, what made you decide to go to college, and what did you decide to go to college for?
So I was going to college for IT because so my dad was FBI working in like, he worked with like radio systems and everything like that, and he's also the one who got me into like computers in terms of like building them, just working on them, all that sort of stuff. And I'd been doing that since I was like 11, 12. I think I'd built like my first computer. So I was always just into the hands-on aspect of like working with them. And then, like I said, I'd also gotten a job at like Best Buy and Geek Squad where I was doing the same thing, working on computers, repairing them, viruses, all that good stuff. So
unplug your computer, plug it back in.
sometimes the basic stuff like that, you get the old 70-year-old grandma having to help her do basic things like that. But I'd always just had a passion for like computer stuff like that. So IT was like, my brother did computer science. He's got a degree in that, but computer science is like a lot more math. And I was always decent at math. Like math was like, I was in the advanced math classes, but I wouldn't call it like my favorite subject. And I know computer science, you had to get like Calc 3 and I did Calc 1 and I was like, look, this is more than enough. I'm done with this whole calc thing. So IT is like, there's some math, but you didn't need to do like quite as much. So I was like, all right, I'll go with that. And I still have plans on going back and finishing like whenever I'm done with like all this. But I'm someone who kind of likes just going with it. And, right now streaming and everything's been going kind of great. So, I try and save most of my money because like a year or two from now, who knows where it'll be. So I'm ready to go back whenever if it gets to that.
That's fair. So you mentioned that you went for IT. Where did you decide to go to school at?
So I was actually just knocking out all of my like easy classes at a local community college. Yeah. So I was like, all right, because my brother had went to school at George Mason, which was like a 50 minute drive. And it's not that like I couldn't have like gone to another one, but it was a lot that I knew I was at the time. I was still also doing a lot of like esports stuff. So I was like, well, if I go to another college, I'm still going to be probably for the most part not really experiencing the college life because I'm going to be putting as much time in like as I can to like practicing and stuff like that. So it's like, well, let me knock out these first courses at like just a local place and then see where to go from there. So I have like all those knocked out. So whenever I go back, I'll be able to like pretty much get into ones for my major actually. So all the general stuff is all out of there.
That's good. So you basically what you did is you were doing, I'm assuming TFT at the time, and you were just doing TFT terms. You were working and then going to school like occasionally on the side, right?
Yeah. I mean, I took, let's see, there was a couple semesters where I took like 4 or 5 classes actually before I was working. But then, once I started working also, it was like 1 or 2 for some of them. So yeah, because I was in like no huge rush to like get my degree as fast as possible. So, but I was doing like a good mix of that.
So were you living at home or did you move out?
My parents were, again, my parents are awesome. They helped. So me and my current girlfriend, she moved up here from Florida and we got our own apartment, which was like probably around like 15 minutes away from where my parents' houses was. So it was nearby still, which I mean, I'm a mama's boy, so I enjoyed being close to them. But yeah, we had our own apartment and then had that for a few years and then moved back home for like 6 months before, and then moved out west here originally to Vegas in the NRG gaming house. Yeah. And now out in Washington just because it's pretty cool here. So
just because you just moved to Washington.
Well, I mean that's like that's the pretty cool part about being a streamer is as long as like the place has good internet, I can kind of live wherever. And I'd always after living in Vegas, it's like the desert. It's hot. I need and from having lived in Virginia my entire life, I need to be back like to nature. And I'd always heard like a lot of stories about the Pacific Northwest and how nice it is, how many trails and stuff there are. And I mean, it's definitely true. Like we live right near Portland and it is very beautiful up here. So
do you go out and see the beauty a lot? Is that something you like to do, to go out and hike and stuff like that?
Oh yeah. I mean, we don't go like hiking and stuff all the time, but just being like in an environment where you can like go out and like see all these trees and everything. It's like, I find it helps like the mind a lot. Cause like in Vegas, like I said, being in the desert and like just near dirt and everything or like sand and stuff everywhere, it can be a little depressing. Like it definitely messed with like my mentality a bit, but like, coming back into an area with like just more nature and trees and everything, it felt like a lot more at home. So I definitely enjoy it a lot more, even if I don't go hiking all the time.
That's fair. So at one point, you had felt like a fuck up. Like I remember, like. Can't ask all the easy question, but at one point you had said that you had felt like a fuck up with your family, that you were like a failure comparative to everyone else in there. What point did this occur to you? What point did that kind of start to hit it?
I guess that was around before Overwatch had really gotten big. It was probably like closer to the start of Overwatch, end of Team Fortress 2, just because there was a period where I'd like failed out on a lot of my college classes. It was I was like skipping classes and shit like that too. And some of it was because of like esports. Like I was like putting way too much focus in that. But I'd say a lot more of it was just I don't know if I want to use the term depressed, but like I just could not like
you
motivate
were just
myself.
Which
again, as like
what was the lead up to that? What was the lead up that got you to that point?
Damn, we're really gonna get deep. Okay, well, I mean,
it is called Deep Dives into the Minds of Esports. To be fair,
it was around that time that I guess I got with my current girlfriend, who is also trans, which I've not really brought up before. And there's some people who know it. I don't really keep it like that much of a secret, but so it was around that time that I guess I was also finding out that I was bi, and so there was like I was like raised like a Christian. My parents were pretty religious. And so I had like a lot of things like trying to just figure myself out, because up until that point I'd never really even had thoughts about like anything like that. I'd never really had a girlfriend or anything like that. I was just doing my thing. So to go from that to being like, wait a second, am I bi and all this other stuff? And then so it was like a mix of that and like not being sure who I was or like anything like that. There was just like a lot of stuff going on for like 18, 19-year-old me. And it took me a while to like get comfortable with everything and figure that all out. But my parents were like really supportive. Like when I brought it up to them eventually, like because like they had noticed I'd like failed some classes and like done all that, and like I said, I was like kind of depressed at the time, trying to like figure everything, like because I didn't know how I felt. And then eventually, I talked with them about them, tell them like, hey, this is what's going on, and they were really nice about all of that. So it was probably just like a mix of all of that, and then also, like I said, just trying to balance esports in school and like a bunch of other things like that. It was a really weird time for me, but
So I kind of want to delve into that just a little bit, like you figuring yourself out in this like competing nature with like all of these value systems that you kind of grew up with, comparative to like these new feelings that you have. How did you start to work through that and kind of like deal with that? How did you start to get to a point where you were accepting of yourself? Because I think this is really beneficial for other people who are struggling in their lives with these things, because it's actually a fairly common thing that can happen to people where they have to fight against these values. How did you start to work through that and to process that and get to a point where you were comfortable with yourself?
I mean, it really took a while. Like, the more I think about it, like, there's a period where I was definitely drinking more than I should have been, like, where I just, like, didn't want to have to, like, feel things. But then I'd say a lot of it was, honestly, Overwatch coming out and me having, like, a game to really invest myself into again and focus on that. Because before Overwatch came out, I was pretty much done with Team Fortress 2. Yeah. I was still like playing it some here or there, but I pretty much accomplished what I wanted to in the game. And the game was also definitely like starting on its decline in terms of like tournaments and everything. So I was just really going back to like school and stuff, or just like doing work and everything. And didn't really have like a bigger goal to focus on. But then when Overwatch was announced and started coming out, I was like, all right, well, this is what I want to do. This is motivating me again. I want to put like my effort in this. And with Overwatch coming out and me like almost right away being like on top teams and whatnot, I'd say just like going to tournaments again and like just having like almost more like a purpose, it felt like. Yeah. I'd say a lot of it probably was also just like getting older. Like I feel like age probably does have a lot to do with it, because as I got older, I just got like more confident, got more like okay, like talking about things. So I can't, I guess, directly attribute it to one thing, but I'd say like a mix of like all of that probably definitely helped with it.
Yeah, so it gave you something kind of to ground yourself with. You were able to find something and then start to handle things as you kind of got older and work through it then, right?
Yeah, I'd say something like that.
Okay, and that makes a lot of sense. Something I was always curious about, because you had mentioned it before, and I always felt like that was something that was kind of a big deal, and I actually didn't know any of that stuff, which I find, first of all, like, I'm happy you got that stuff worked out. Like, I'm happy you got to a point where you're like very confident.
I always do like I always try and like carry myself like, I always got, I got shit under control. I got it. But there was definitely a period in my life where I did not. And I still tried to like, make myself seem like that. But yeah, there was definitely a period where like, it was a little Trumpulous. I butchered that pronunciation. Damn it! But
I don't even know what the word is. So you're still looking smarter than I am.
I was trying. So I was going for it. But yeah, there was a period where things were not all great. But I guess worked through it, and definitely I'm a lot happier with where everything is now. So
when Overwatch comes out, is that when you decide to fully drop out of school and just pursue Overwatch, or what was the point where you decided?
I'd actually already stopped taking classes for a little bit, because at Best Buy I was originally in computer sales for a year as part-time, and then I got moved into Geek Squad as a repair agent part-time, And then eventually I got full-time there. So I moved on to full-time. And when I got full-time there is when I took a break from school for a bit. I was like, hey, I just want to work get some, because I needed a break from school also. It was around that point where like, I just felt like I could not motivate myself to like go to classes and to like, do what I needed to do to like pass them. So I was like, okay, look, I need a break from this. Let me just work and like focus on this, which my work was also in the field. Again, I was a repair agent. So it's like basic entry level IT stuff. So it's like, okay, well, let me do this. And then, like I said, when Overwatch was first coming out is when I was originally planning on actually going back to school. So I had to like, I then had to make the decision like, well, do I continue with my plans of going back to school, or do I put all my eggs in the basket and go in on Overwatch? Because again, I've been pro in Team Fortress 2. I'd been top level in that, but Overwatch was like a whole different ball game. You had players from like every game coming and playing it, which was pretty cool. Like at the start, you had like there were like a bunch of like Quake players and like Counter-Strike players that I had like followed in these other games.
MOBA players.
It was really cool to like be able to play against them on like an even playing field where the game is like new to all of us. Because I remember there was like Steel, Swag. You had a bunch of like the Quake pros. It was just like a really cool environment having all these other players who I had like followed and been like a fan of, and now I was like competing against them in this. But yeah, it was like so I was originally going to go to school, but I was like, let me do this, and glad I did.
Did you think that Overwatch was going to blow up? Because I don't know if there was any, like when Overwatch was first coming out, I don't know if anyone knew that there was going to be a franchise. I can't remember when that was announced.
I think a lot of people expected it to, just knowing how Blizzard was. Yeah. Blizzard, if they make a game, normally it's a pretty big one, and normally they also put like invest. So back in Team Fortress 2, Valve made that game, and they did nothing to support the game. Like they occasionally would make like a blog post being like, "Hey, there's a tournament," or they'd add like some in-game medals. Yeah. But besides that, they were really hands off with the competitive scene. But we knew with like Blizzard and Overwatch, they had designed the game kind of around competitive, and also there had already been like rumors of like Overwatch League and other stuff like that. So no, there was a pretty big expectation that the game was gonna, who knows how big it was gonna be, but people knew there was gonna be money to be made in it. So
were you able to get into the beta?
Yeah, day one. So I was there day one. I had like my old teammates got me into it. So yeah, I was originally gonna be a Mercy main because back in Team Fortress 2 I played Medic some, and I was like, well, I was really good at Medic. It came really natural to me, so let me do this. But I realized pretty early on that there's no way I would have been able to bring myself to practice like 10, 12 hours a day playing support. Because I find if you're going to play something professionally, you have to like enjoy your role and enjoy practicing. Otherwise, you're just not going to want to do it. And there's no way I would have been able to do it as support. So that's when I became like, originally I was like a Pharah player because I played Soldier also in Team Fortress 2, which is like a similar role. So originally I was like Pharah DPS, and then eventually I found out that Roadhog was kind of fun, and that's where I kind of made my transition over to like off tank. So it was a interesting phase.
So when your Overwatch career is kind of interesting, like looking at, and I would say interesting, but also very unfortunate. Like a lot of the stuff that I like, no offense meant, but a lot of stuff I've seen with your Overwatch career is just like, you have some bad luck with teams. Like, so I
don't know if I would use the term unfortunate, because I mean, I'm sure there'd be like almost any player out there would love to be like in my position. It's funny, like when you're a player, a lot of players want to be streamers because of the job security, but then a lot of streamers also want to be players, and I'm in that weird like role where I've done both and I guess done them well. So it's like there's definitely been teams in the past where it feels like we never had a fair shot, or it felt like there were definitely weird issues we've had, whether it be back on Complexity, how we were originally TSM for like a week. Yeah. And then they were like, well, Nick and Torque had cheated in the past in this other game. We don't want to be associated with you, so we're going to drop you. So we went from TSM to Complexity. So that was like a weird phase, but Complexity turned out being like one of the coolest orgs ever. So, can we swear on this?
Yeah, oh yeah, you can swear as much as you fucking want.
Fuck TSM. There we go. I just had to throw it out there. Let's see. After that, though, at NRG, we also had like a weird phase with like Siegel. Originally was like the one who kind of like recruited a lot of us, but then he took a step back before we even played like our first tournament because he wanted to go like and focus on streaming some. Yeah. So there was definitely like some weird like situations, but I mean, before Overwatch League, like with Complexity, we won like, or we didn't win, but like we went to like all of the big like international tournaments, Gamescom, DreamHack in Sweden. So like being able to like go to all those was like definitely an awesome experience. So even if like it could have gone better, especially like since Overwatch League has started, I have like so many good memories of like past teams I've been on that like, I wouldn't like call any of them bad. Like pretty much any team I've been on, I have like good memories of like competing with.
You're a glass half full type of person, it seems like, which I
mean, it's really just being able to look back. Like I had a blast with a lot of those teams, and we did like accomplish good results. Now I would have definitely preferred to win more than we had with some of them, but I mean that's esports. It's never going to be easy. Like
there can only be one winner, right? Like you can't win everything. So one of the things I wanted to ask you about is kind of like looking at your careers. One of the things that you've been kind of come out for is like toxicity. Okay, like you've called out people for this.
I try not to call out. I mean, I don't names or anything, but go on.
I believe specifically you've called out XQC and DeFran. Just throwing that out there. I'm pretty sure both those two people you have called out for in the past.
Okay, I did one time when I went on a rant about that, and part of me kind of almost regrets doing that because whenever you like rant about shit like that, it sounds like you have issues with them, and I have literally zero issues with the XQC or DeFran. Yeah. But that being said, I guess I have had issues with the way they've done stuff like DeFran. I remember the big thing with him was like there's a period where he was like legit just throwing games. He was like going Torb and Spawn and just putting a turret there and like doing nothing. And as like professionals and also like big content creator like Twitch streamers, like I do think that people should try and hold themselves to like a bit higher of standards where like, you've got thousands of people watching you. You don't want, what example are you setting by doing this sort of shit? Because like, even though you might just like be playing and like having fun and doing your own thing, there's going to be a lot of like, younger or newer players who see that sort of thing and try and emulate it. And like, I don't enjoy getting people throwing my ranked games. So I try and like, I guess set an example that like, hey, you can play serious, you can try and win and not be an asshole or not like, troll about it.
So kind of looking at that concept in itself is a very interesting concept, and it's kind of the idea that goes back to fame. Like overall, like people look at like famous people all the time, and do they have a responsibility to uphold themselves to a certain standard of being? Do you kind of hold that true for like everyone who's in some level of fame, that you have more of a responsibility because you are famous to hold yourself accountable in a certain way?
I mean, yes and no. Yes, that I think people should, like, ideally they should try and do that, but no in the sense that, there is no obligation for them to do that. Like, ultimately, streaming, that's their job. Like, they're just making money. They have no obligation to, like, try and improve the scene or try and, like, influence people to be nicer. Like, and a lot of them, like, I guess in more XQC's case, people like watching him because, like, he can be funny, like, when he rages and shit like that. Like, I find that funny also. Like, if done right, I think that sort of thing can be funny. So it's like, I don't really expect them to like act differently like that. And again, they have no obligation to, but I do think that like, if you are in that position more often than not, I guess you should try and make it better just because it's better for the scene as a whole. Like when people see like someone and see someone acting nice, they may be like, well, I guess I'll try and be with my teammates like that. So I'd say that, there's no obligation for them to, but it's a nice thing to do, I guess. I don't know. But then again, for me, it's like, I don't really think about that when I do it. Like, for me, it's just, I just be myself, and I guess myself is like being kind of nice to them. So people, it's not like it's not something I actively try and do. I'm like, well, let me make sure I be nice, set an example. Like, it's not like I go and think about that when I'm doing it. I'm just, being me.
Do you think that you got those values from your parents? Is that where that kind of comes from?
Definitely. They were super nice, like I said, raised me really nice. So I would definitely say, if I would have had a different upbringing, I could see me be acting like entirely different than I am now. So I would definitely attribute it a lot towards them.
Mm-hmm. So kind of looking at contenders, jumping back to that, you've been in like Overwatch tier 2 or whatever you want to call it, because obviously before Overwatch League there was just tournaments. But you've played in teams through contenders, and I would argue maybe it was more of a style of what like tier 2 looks like now, or is kind of like. what do you think of the competitive scene and how it has grown? Because obviously you've played, like, I have a lot of criticisms for Contenders. I am probably I actively criticize it all the time. And not in the hopes that it's terrible, but in hopes that they make it better. So that is kind of what I do. But you've been through the start and through recently. Do you think it's gotten better?
This could be an episode in itself just talking about this, but
I do need to post on the Overwatch community, so that's...
Yeah, I'd say, honestly, no. Like, it really has not. So, back so when Overwatch first came out, there was no Overwatch League. Blizzard was, like, a bit more hands-off with how the tournaments were. Yeah. So, it was kind of nice when Overwatch first came out, because you could, like, literally just make a team with, like, 5 friends and then play in like these same tournaments that like literally the top teams are playing in. So it didn't feel like there was that same like barrier in a way, as opposed to now, there is like, I guess, a system in place where you're supposed to go to open division, open playoffs, trials, contenders. So there is like kind of like these stepping stones, but it's definitely not how it should be. And also in terms of like Blizzard support, it's kind of a joke. Like they plan on like having OWL be a big thing and then wanting like everyone to try and get into it, but they have like no good scene beneath that to like actually be able to work yourself up. So I'm still waiting for my last paycheck from not even this last contender season, the one before it. So I think that's like 8 months ago or like 6 months ago or something it ended. So like, you have these players who, I'm in a position where I don't really need the money desperately, but you have a lot of these players who are like, 18, 19 and like they need that money. And it's like, it's so unprofessional, like having like players just not know when it's coming, not knowing when to get paid. You look at like the stream on it sometimes with like how scuffed the setups are and everything. Like, it's like, it's awesome. It's cool, like how Overwatch League is. And it's definitely as a whole, I'd say it's good for the game. Like the money it brings in, the viewerships, the sponsors and all that. Like it's definitely good for the game. But outside of Overwatch League, it definitely is like pretty barren, and there's a reason why you see like so many players quit. Like there's a lot of players where it's like, hey, I need the money, and if you're not on an academy team, there's literally no money to be made from it, as opposed to like before Contenders, you had like all these other sponsors in the game. There was like at least like 12 different just like random little ones, which I guess when you think about Overwatch League teams, there are like in that also, but it used to be like a lot easier to like get money in the game outside of the top level, and it's definitely not the case anymore. And As for like what Blizzard should do to fix it, I'd say they just need to like I said, be more hand-on with stuff. Like be more open with like what their plans are, because like they'll support it in the land they're having Gauntlet pretty soon. That stuff like that is really awesome. I would like to see a lot more stuff like that, because previous contender seasons have been a lot worse. So I guess it's getting a little bit better, but it's still definitely not near where it needs to be.
How is it being a player on teams? Like, do you feel like protected? Because obviously you've played for teams like NRG. You've played for teams like Grunta, right? And those are one is an org and one is, I don't think, really an org.
Yeah. Well, they are technically, but it was a weird situation there.
I'm sorry. I'm not gonna. We're not gonna. I don't consider them an org. And in fact, I think they've already lost Grunto. I don't even think. I don't think they're Grunto anymore.
They still. I mean, originally they were just giving us a house, and it's like if an org gives you a house, you're gonna you'll use their name. But they were like just starting out. I don't know what they're doing now, but so I guess
they did not last very long.
But
but kind of looking at like the players, how do you feel protected in the scene? Like, obviously you've come from earlier on Overwatch, and contracts have also improved since like Blizzard took a more hands-on approach as far as Overwatch League. I don't know if that's true for Contenders, but do you feel like there is a life cycle for you, that there is some level of protection for you as a Contenders player? Because obviously you had some issues with Grunto, where you were left/removed.
Yeah. So I've always been like, I guess in like a weirder spot, especially with like my hero pool. Like, so I'm an off-tank player, and traditionally most off-tank players have been like more Diva one-tricks, or like, Diva's been like their primary hero with maybe like a bit of Zarya or other stuff on the side. Well, for me, it was, when I first got into like off-tank, that was like before Diva was even a thing. So I was like a hog player with a bit of like Zarya and some other stuff. And then eventually often moved to the position where it was like, yeah, mainly Diva. And that was around the time when my stream first started taking off also. And it was like, old Diva was way more boring than new Diva is. And I was like, well, I need to practice Diva, but I don't necessarily want to be practicing it on stream when I know it's like boring content and people want to watch me like hit hooks and stuff like that. So I did have like a really tough time like trying to balance, what I wanted to do. And in retrospect, I probably should have practiced Diva more at the time than I did. And I thought I wasn't practicing her because I was grinding the shit out of her, like in scrim still, off stream still. I was still playing her a lot, but I definitely could have, like, if I was playing her on stream also, that's just like additional practice that I could have been getting. But like I said, at the time, it was like, well, with people want to see me play Hog, they want to see the crazy hooks and stuff like that. So I was like playing a lot more of that. So I've always been like kind of weird in my role. And if I'm on a team, I want to be on the team because they want me as a player and they want what I bring. I don't want to be on a team just because like I'm a streamer and like the org wants like viewers and stuff like that. Like, I would much rather just go and stream and do my own thing if that was the case. So, any of the teams I've been on, it feels like I've never really felt like pressure, I'd say, because I guess that is a nice part of having a stream also. So like back when I first got into Overwatch, back on like LG and stuff like that, I remember when I got cut from LG, I was like, damn, I need that money. Like, what am I going to do now? And there was that so much stress and like pressure of like, well, this has to work or or there's nothing else. So I will say like having this stream to kind of fall back from does like help eliminate that stress when competing some. But there still is like, I always put pressure on myself because I want to be the best. Like I want to compete and play at like top level. So there still is pressure of like my own goals, but not in the same sense that it's like I need to do this or else I'm not going to eat tonight, which is, I guess, nice. And it's unfortunate there are players who are in that circumstance, but I mean that's also the nature of the game. Someone's got to win, someone's got to lose. So
yeah, you mentioned feeling wanted and stuff on teams. Have you felt wanted on the teams that you've been on, or do you always feel like you're almost like a streamer first, like people are kind of looking at you just because you bring in those numbers?
So, well, I mean, I haven't been on like a ton of teams since getting more into streaming. So, like NRG, obviously, we had like other streamers on it, like Siegel and whatnot. So that one, and Andre, I did ED. So I didn't feel weird at all in that one. In fact, it actually felt kind of nice to like have others to be able to talk about like streaming things about, because like there's a lot of things that can be like hard to talk with someone else who like doesn't really do it as much. And then on Kungarna, I definitely felt out of place, and I'd say that was less like me and more just like the environment in general. And also I'd say it was like a gap because I think that one, like a lot of the players were younger, and I remember like just feeling like once scrims were over, I would normally dip out and like not really hang out just because it felt like a weird environment. But less so on Chicken Contendies. Chicken Contendies was the first team in a while where it felt like we were all like good friends and I could like hang out and we would like watch movies and do like other like team bonding stuff, which I do think is important in like a team environment. Like you have to be able to get along with your teammates outside of like scrims if you're gonna like be able to improve. Because there's a lot of like times where you're gonna have like tough conversations, be like, look, you really fucked this play up, or look, this went like really bad. And like, if you like aren't friends with your teammates, those conversations could be hard to have sometime. That being said, also, it definitely felt like there were times where other players thought it was like harder to bring stuff up to me just because, I am a streamer and I am like a former pro and I'm a bit older. So there were probably factors that made it so players were like, it wasn't quite as easy to talk to me as it was like each other. But like I said, Chicken Contendies, it definitely felt more like a good team environment where we were still able to like joke around, do other sort of stuff like that. But so it's like on almost like a team by team basis, I guess you could say, depending on who else is on the team, how they like treat me.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I want to delve more into Chicken Contenders in just a minute. I want to hit one more thing before we get into that, because something before that I wrote down that I thought was kind of important that I want to hear almost like your side of it. At one point, you were supposedly supposed to be on San Francisco Shock for Season 1, and that offer was supposedly rescinded. What's the story behind that? How does that happen?
It's a weird situation that all of us had like. There was a lot of stuff that went on NRG and Shock that like I could probably talk for hours about, but I don't really want, at some point it's gonna sound like I'm just like slinging mud at them or something. But it is, so we had Seamus as our original coach, with like our core of like Dummy, Numlock, me, Ajax, Siegel, and all that. And eventually players started like dropping like flies, either with management wanting to like, remove them, or like them quitting themselves, or other things like that. So it got to a point where it was like Cmoose, me, Numlocked, and IDDQD all living in a house. So it was like the four of us. And then eventually management wanted to remove Numlocked, and then they wanted to remove Cmoose. So it was just me and IDDQD, and they were like, hey, you two are the ones, we have the contracts and stuff ready. We want you on the team, whatnot. And then this was also when they had picked up the new coach, Brad. Yeah. And it was like a weird period where like they were scrimming, but they were also like trying out like other players, because teams have like 12 players on the team. They have like players in the same role, so they were trying out some other diva player. And I was like, okay, that's fine. Like, I understand that. I might be splitting playtime with them or whatnot, but I was okay with it. But I definitely could like get the feeling that something wasn't like.
Did you have a contract?
Right behind this. We didn't have. No, they had said multiple times, "Hey, the contract's ready. We'll send it over." Whatnot. We're just like checking over some last couple things. And with how long it was taking them to send the contract, though, I could definitely like, I was getting the vibe that, okay, something's wrong here. Something's probably going to go on. So I was already kind of like mentally preparing myself to like be like, okay, if I get cut, so be it. I'm just going to focus on streaming some, doing all that. It's not the end of the world. But it definitely, don't get me wrong, it definitely was like a shitty, frustrating situation, because obviously my goal, like everyone else's goal, was Overwatch League. Yeah. And so to be in a situation where it's like, oh yeah, no, you got it. It's on the way. And then be like, well, just kidding, never mind. We don't see a need for you. It was like, it definitely kind of sucked. And I definitely held it against them. Like normally a lot of orgs and stuff like that, I understand it's a business thing. If a player isn't fit, yada, yada, I understand that. I just wish they would have been a lot more upfront about it. Like the way they kind of like strung us along and were like, hey, it's on the way, it's coming, and then pulled that shit. It's like, it felt really unprofessional from an org to pull that. Like I'd been there for all the practices. I'd like been doing that shit, and then to have.
Were
them,
you
like,
looking at other teams too at the same time, or did you?
Not were you like? Because again, I was on shock. Like they were a set owl team. Like I was like, I had not considered like any other teams, even though I did, like I said, get the feeling that potentially something was going to happen. It would have been weird for me to like try and look for other teams while on it, and also, like I said, after that went down, I kind of was like demotivated for a bit, where it's like, I need to break from this shit. I've been grinding like Diva so much because scrims and everything. It was like that was like peak dive meta, which is probably my least favorite meta individually. So I was like, I need a break from this. Let me just stream for a bit and do that. Which I did that for like 6 months in Vegas, and I eventually got back into it. But there was like a weird period there.
So I want to talk about that period. And you're taking a break. What makes you want to say, like, after that, okay, I want to get back into competitive? Was it because Overwatch League was happening and you got to see it from the outside? What was it that gave you back that almost like competitive drive? Because your stream was doing fairly well, and I would say that I think if you have a successful stream, I think it's probably more consistent and safer than being on a pro team a lot of times.
I definitely would agree with that.
So, like, you obviously have this very stable, fairly stable thing, as long as you don't stop for long periods of time. What makes you think, oh, you know what, I really want to get back into that competitive drive again now?
Well, I mean, like I said, I've been doing it since I was like 16, and I'm not getting any younger, so it's like, all right, I was really asking, like, I really want to play on Overwatch League, and I was like, well, these are probably around my last good shots to do it. So I was like, well, and plus I've always just been like a competitive person. Like, don't get me wrong, I enjoy streaming, I enjoy playing ranked and all like that, but it definitely does not scratch that same competitive itch. Like, winning a close ranked game is cool, but there's no feeling that really comes close to like when you and your teammates have been practicing for months and you're like in this intense match and it goes down to the wire and you come out on top. Like, there's no feeling in ranked or anything that can come close to that. So it's like, on one hand, it's like wanting to just like experience all that again. It's pretty awesome, and also just competing and whatnot's fun. And plus, competing, scrimming, and practicing makes me better in ranked and better on stream. So it's like it helps each other out, because people enjoy watching me because they like to see me pop off on whatnot, or because they find me funny or whatnot. Whatever reason. But so being able to practice again on a team makes me play better on stream, which makes it more enjoyable to watch also. So it kind of like helps itself out. But I'd say a lot of it definitely is just that, I realize I'm not getting any younger. It's like I'm probably getting close to like my last good push where I can like motivate myself to do it. So it's like, all right, let me make a real good effort at this. And if it doesn't work out, then, I can say I at least give it my all and tried for that. So,
Are you going to look to be on a pro team this coming? You mentioned Owl season 3. Let's say you don't get an Owl spot. Are you going to take a contender spot?
I would take a contender spot if it was like the right team for it. I don't think I would take a contender spot that was just like a team in it that would probably go like 2-6 or something like that, because again I've proven myself already in contenders recently. Like my last team we were 3-0 before like the whole situation went down, and the team before that we'd made playoffs with me missing like half the season because of my dad. So it's like, I've more than proven myself in like that I know how to win games in contenders and wherever. Like I've been doing this long enough. Like if people don't see the value I bring to a team, or they think like I'm bad because I have like a bit weird hero pool, then I guess I can understand that. But I know what I bring to a team. I know like what it takes to win and like the environment you need and whatnot. So I would take the right contenders team, the right academy team. But if it gets to the point where like there's no real good offers, then I'd probably just focus on streaming then or something.
That makes sense. So, can you run me through Chicken Contenders? Right, this is the getting into Chicken Contenders. What was that process? I obviously you were friends with them.
It was a weird one, honestly. So
run me through the lifespan of your time with Chicken Contenders through Grunto Esports.
It was a weird start to it. So they were originally called TQS. Some guy called Comboed messaged me. He said, "Oh, we have," I forgot who he said. There were some other like good players he said we're trying out for them. And I knew instantly he was like lying. I could tell he was the type of person who would like try and say whatever to like get you in. But I was like, well, fuck it. Why not? If they're bad, then they're bad. So what? Because at that point I wasn't scrimming or doing anything. And I saw they had Chazzy playing with them, who I had seen a lot in ranked. I knew he was a good main tank. And in my mind, I was like, this was like also when Goats meta was becoming a thing. So in my mind, I was like, all right, this main tank's pretty good. I kind of want to work with him and play with him. I think together we'll be like one of the best main tank combos. So it originally, I ended up joining for some reason, and he ended up joining too. And we had like a pretty decent squad. We went undefeated in our first open division season, and then we made playoffs. We choked out in that, but still made trials. Did fine enough in that, made contenders. So we went through like the whole system of like open, the whole climbing the ladder thing. But yeah, it's kind of funny how that team started, because like none of us really, I think we were with TQS, the org technically, for like 2 weeks before we realized like, yeah, these guys have no idea what they're doing. Let us go just be our own thing and we'll work from that. And I've always much preferred that environment. So I've been doing esports forever. I come from when all like the teams and everything were player controlled. And so if you had like an issue with someone else in the team, you didn't go and like run to your manager. You would like work it out amongst yourselves. And for me, that's how I much prefer the environment, because it forces players to like be more open with each other and like have more conversations that sometimes they might not want to have, but can ultimately like help build a team. So we always had like that sort of system where I think we were like one of the few like contenders teams who was really like a player controlled team, because most of the others are either academy or they have like some manager still who handles stuff. But even during our first contender season, I would consider us like player controlled, where we made all the decisions. We made sure there was like no coach or manager like overruling us. So that changed with Grunto down the road. Like eventually like they wanted to become more of like an actual org team. So that's where like they definitely had managers making decisions who, I can't say they made the right ones always. And I'd say there definitely a lot of players would agree with me on that. So I kind of regret not trying to keep the control more, or not trying to like look out for it more. But I mean, it is what it is.
What was that process? What was that process like, where you go from a player controlled system to giving up all this control to a management? How did that come about, where you guys were okay with that?
It was mostly just that. I mean, that was around the time that we had players who kind of needed like a gaming house or something. And so that's when we were talking with Grunto and they had a house. And it definitely is also like stressful doing like player control. Like there is a reason like a lot of teams have managers, is, them handling some of that shit makes it like a lot easier, where you don't have to worry about that always. So it was around that part where like a lot of us were getting kind of burnt out from doing that. So we also had wanted to like give the power to like other people. And around the time we had like Wave, who had been with us for a while, he wanted to become like the manager and like take over more of those responsibilities. And we were like, yeah, I mean, sure, that's fine. And I do think that he has good intentions, and I know they're planning on like still working for next season, but I definitely disagree with like some of the decisions they made. And I know some of my other teammates felt the same way, but I mean, I don't want to like get too much into it because I really don't hold like any at the moment or at the time when I was first cut. I was salty as fuck. I was mad. I
will say you cannot agree with someone's decisions and think that they still made a wrong decision without saying they're an idiot. I'm just throwing that out there. Like,
it's more that I guess more come to terms with it in enough times past where like, you know, I can understand why they felt like they did what they did, because it was also at the time when Role Queue was first announced, and I was, you know, we had Salty on the team who was technically the off-tank player. I was technically the DPS player. And, you know, I play DPS heroes fair and whatnot, but I definitely don't consider myself like, you know, a DPS main. I'm definitely an off-tank. So it was like a weird situation with all that, where they had Onigod lined up, who is a really good DPS player. So I can definitely understand them going it with that aspect. But it was still like the way it was handled.
What was the timeline and what happened from your perspective with you getting cut?
So it might have been like a build-up coming. I never really saw eye to eye either. I'm a very vocal guy when I'm on a team. Like, you know, I
want to ask about that. When you say vocal, okay,
vocal in the sense that I call a lot, but not vocal in the sense that I'm like argumentative. Although I guess maybe some others would consider me that. So, you know, I'll listen, like, if coaches say something, like, I understand, like, how coaching is, all that. Obviously, I've been doing this forever. Like, I know how it works, and I have plenty of, like, coaches who would, like, say that I'm fine working with. But it was just something, like, with I was always forced on that team trying to be the one who stopped everyone from, like, mentally imploding, which would lead me to, like, sometimes having to be, like, confrontational, because there would be a lot of times where we'd have, like, a rough block of scrims, and people would like literally shut down and like not calm, and I would always have to be the one to be like, hey, you know, let's stay in this, like let's make sure we're like keep doing this. And you know, sometimes that would like lead me to get frustrated too, because it's annoying like seeing your teammates do that and having like be the one trying to keep everyone like in it. But that would also lead me to sometimes, I guess, get confrontational with our coaches, because they would also sometimes be like too hard, I thought, on us as people were like mentally booming. So I was like, hey. So there was like a lot of his stuff that went into it, but yeah, it was just, it kind of came out of the blue for me still though. Like I got the feeling that maybe it could have happened, but it was like after we beat Gladiators Legion, you know, which we were expected to lose to, like they were undefeated at the time. Like they're like a really good team. We ended up beating them and we were 3-0. And then, you know, we always had like our days off after matches. So we had the day off. And I get like a message like, hey, we're having a team meeting. And almost right away, I got the feeling like, okay, they're doing a team meeting on our day off, which was also on 4th of July. Something's probably going on. And for, you know, I guess I've been around esports long enough where I have like this sixth sense when I know like some shit's about to go down with the roster and normally involving me. And you know, it'd been like that on LG when I got cut. I kind of saw it coming. So I kind of got the vibe to it. But yeah, that's pretty much ended up what the meeting was about.
So they you on the 4th of July.
They benched me, but they also knew that like there's no way that I was going to take like a bench position. Like they knew that, like, you know, not that like on an Overwatch League team or like in the right environment, I wouldn't be okay like being a sub necessarily, or like being like, you know, having like a rotating role. But with how much like I had like put into the team, you know, I'd been there since like day one. I had like done a lot to like keep the players together. I was pretty much, I guess, one of the main driving forces behind keeping the roster together that upcoming, because after our first contender season, a lot of players either quit or got picked up by other teams or like weren't sure if they wanted to come back. So I like put a lot of work into like trying to make sure like, you know, we had a team and people wanted to play still and whatnot. So like with everything I had put in, I felt like I kind of just deserved more like respect than I got with how they handled it. Like I felt like they should have had a conversation, been like, hey, we have these sort of issues, either work on them or you know, we're gonna have to make some changes, which I would have completely understood that. Like you know, I know how the business works, how esports works, and how all that works, but it just felt like the way they handled it, they didn't show like the same respect for the amount of like work I had put in and like trying to help everyone else out. But again, I don't hold any grudges now.
No, I know. So they didn't cut you. They benched you, and you were like, "Listen, I put all this work in. I'd rather kind of just if I'm gonna be in this position, I might as well just stream, and I might as well just kind of be on my own and do my own thing." Is that kind of the thinking?
And I mean, and they knew that before them benching me. Like they might not say that, but like I definitely like mentioned like just because it's true. Like I had better things to do than like be a bench player on like a contenders team that I knew I could be starting for. It's like. So I completely understand why they did it. It was just like how they handled it definitely left a bad taste in my mouth. But, I'm also someone who's pretty quick to like get over things. And even though I still like don't agree with how it was handled, I wish them all, I was rooting for them in playoffs. Yeah. Obviously, they were my teammates. I was hoping for them to make Gauntlet. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. But, it is what it is.
Yeah, feels bad and mad about that. So your first season with Chicken Contenders, is that when your dad passed away?
Yes. And that was... Honestly, probably being on Chicken Contendies during that time helped me a lot because it was having that something to like be able to focus my practice on and like focus my free time on definitely like almost gave me a purpose in a way. Not that like streaming and whatnot didn't do that also, but when you're on a team, it's like every single day is wake up, practice, like focus on this sort of thing. So having that sort of environment while I was dealing with all that definitely helped a lot because I ended up missing I think like 3 weeks of matches, which let me just add in the matches I was there for we went I think 3-2, so I was positive that season again. My record in Contenders I'm like 6-2 or something, but there was like a good period where at first I went to just go visit him when he was in the hospital because he was sick, but he was still like doing good, so I was like gone for a week. And then
can I ask what happened?
So my dad had pancreatic cancer, and I mean the survival rate for that is really low. But it was it was still pretty early on, and we were there, and I went there for like the 1 week just to see him because I knew it was serious, but I didn't know like I guess it was that serious. Yeah, so I went there, and I was there for like 5 days, and he seemed like he was getting better towards the end of it. I remember, and because he was like talking and everything, which he hadn't been doing a lot before in like the previous days. So he seemed like he was getting better. So then I flew home and we played our next match, which we won. And then I remember that same night, I got a call from like my mom saying, "Holy, listen, we had to get in." I got a call from my mom just saying like his heart had stopped. And so that was like, I was like, again, I was gone for like a week. I came back. We had like 1 day of practice. We ended up winning our match, and then I had to go fly back where I was gone for like another 2 weeks. But then, because he had passed away, but that I came back, we won our next match, and we made playoffs. So it was kind of an awesome season, all things considered, because I was gone for like the vast majority of it, or not vast. I was gone for 3 weeks of it, but we were still able to like make playoffs, avoid relegation, and then make next season. So it was like a
roller coaster of emotions.
I would definitely say that because I mean, obviously it was, but like I said, being in the team environment while I had all that going on and like having teammates like to talk to and like all that was it definitely was like a lot to help with like all of that. So it was. I'm glad I was on it.
Were you able to like confide in them and actually talk to them? Like, did you actually reach out and talk to them, or was it more like it's just nice to have someone there?
No, I mean, no, they knew what was going on, and like, they were all telling me like stay strong, and like they were open to talk to me more if I needed and whatnot. And I didn't like go that much on with them about it, but just like having them like backing me up and like just having like again that sort of environment where like, because when you're with players for like 5 or 6 months with teammates, you do build that bond that like you don't really get with like others. Like, I have like stream regulars who I like would say I have a bond with, but it's not the same as like teammates where you're, again, every day you're waking up, practicing together, working together. It's like a different bond you build. So I was definitely felt like I was able to like talk with them and have them with me or like help with that some. So
I have a question for you. You seem like someone who doesn't like to burden other people with yourself. Like just a little bit that I've seen from. I don't know if like you're someone who would go out of your way to. It seems like you would keep more of it to yourself, and you would try to be as strong as you can by yourself. Is that a correct assessment?
I would say so, and also I guess part of it is that like I don't know. It's like I guess I consider myself like very lucky to be in the position I'm in, like with my, because I don't know, I don't consider myself anything special. I guess I'm kind of, I don't want to use the word humble because calling yourself humble sounds terrible, but like I wake up like every day, and when I start up my stream, I'm just thinking to myself like, wow, there's people who like enjoy watching me, and like I guess I can like understand like why they do, but again, it's like for me, it's like still weird adjustment getting used to, even though I've been doing it for like 3 years now. So it's like I had a good train of thought here. We said one take. I'm gonna regain where this train of thought was going. Something about something with something. Oh yeah. Also and also on my stream, I guess I know like a lot of people tune in and like they like seeing me have fun. They like seeing me be happy and like enjoy myself and like. I'll always get like messages from like people saying like, oh, I had like a rough week, I had like a rough month, some shit was going down, and just having you to like tune into and watch has like helped make my day a lot better. So it's like, when I'm streaming, even when I had like all that going on, I didn't want to like be like sad or like depressed the entire time on stream. And also because again, I feel like lucky to be where I'm at, I guess. Yeah. So it would almost like feel, I don't know, not ungrateful, but like it's one of those things where it's like, I shouldn't be sad or I shouldn't be feeling this way because I have this position. But that's also like a wrong mentality to think. Like, you can have like the best environment and still be like sad or stuff like that. It's something only more recently, I guess I've been more like open with myself about. Like recently I haven't been like feeling the hottest. I guess I'm still like adjusting and like dealing with like, I guess it takes time to like fully process and get through like losing someone like that. So it's, it's something that it comes and goes, but I feel like I've only more recently been able to like express more how I actually feel about it and like admit when like I'm not feeling the best and admit when like I'm feeling sad. Cause like there were times where like I wasn't feeling the best, but like on stream or whatnot, I would always try to make it seem like I was, enjoying everything the same, just cause again, people want to tune in. They want to see like someone enjoying themselves, so it can be like hard to balance sometimes.
That process of losing someone who's so important to you, because like I think about losing my dad, who is like by far the most influential figure probably in my life, and like the person who I've worked with him, I've done stuff with him. I can't really imagine what that's like, and I don't think anyone really can. How do you start to get through that? What do you do to hold on to some semblance of like a reality, or like there's something there that you need to kind of work through, and it's still something that you're working through. You've even said so. Like what do you try to hold on to besides? Is there anything? Is it just streaming mostly?
Yeah, I guess that it's one of, I guess one of those things where nobody ever prepares for it, but I mean, Jesus
I don't think you
Christ,
can.
I did not like, I remember I went home last Christmas and so, I don't live at home, so I don't see my parents all the time. And I went home last Christmas and I saw that, my dad, you could tell like something was wrong like instantly. So they picked us up from the airport and then we don't say anything. And eventually we get home and he's like, well, I'm sure you probably noticed. And at that point, I was like scared shitless because I could tell like, it was something. And that's when they, start talking about that. But, they made it all sound like, there's a good chance that things were going to be okay. But, I also, I know how things work. I knew there was the chance, but it was just.
It's easier to believe that everything is going to work out.
It was, and it was way more sudden than I guess any of us had expected. Because like I said, I was there for like a week and he seemed like he was starting to get better. And then like I fly home and like 2 days later, that I get the call that, it's hard to stop. But I will say that I had him. So when I was there for Christmas, though, I did have him like come on my stream. Yeah. Which I never had my parents or anyone come on before that. And that's probably like, man.
Okay.
It's probably like the best like memory thing I can have. And I was, I made sure to like save the VOD. I have that all saved, so I can like go back and like watch that every once in a while. Yeah, but it's definitely something that, some days are better than others. Still like kind of just getting used to it every day, but I did think that I would be I'd always been like kind of where I didn't let things like get to me that emotionally. Like I had always been like, I could watch whatever. I could be in like whatever situation, and normally I'm not someone who would like cry or let things affect me like that. But I'll say since it happened, Jesus Christ, I've been like a wreck emotionally since then. Not like a wreck that like I can't, but like things that before like wouldn't phase me.
Yeah.
Like now, if I'm watching a movie where like someone like loses a parent and it absolutely like destroys me. So it's funny like the things that like I can like relate to more now, where it's like Jesus. But yeah, I don't know. It's just some days are better than others, but I do try and I said like when I first got back from all that, like on my first stream, I know my dad wouldn't want me to be like sad and like depressed all the time. I know he would want me to like keep doing what I'm doing. And again, the fact that like my dad had been like such a big part in my life and my life in esports. Like I said, he was at the first tournament I was at. He was he took like pictures. I remember my teammates met him because they wanted to see him, and they said he looked like the Doc from Back to the Future with his hair and everything. So he'd always been like part of my life with that. So I guess that's just what I try and do. I try and understand that he wouldn't want me to like just do nothing and like let my depression like stop me from like competing or doing what I want to do. So I always just try and keep that mentality and keep going through it.
That's fair. I have one more hard question for you. This is my last one. Do you regret flying back? Do you still like think about it?
Not at all. Wait, flying back to like see him or anything like that?
No. When you left and then 2 days later you found out that he passed.
Oh, for that. Oh. I mean, yes and no, because I mean, obviously, yes, that I wish, if I would have known like what it would have happened, I would have moved back east and stayed there. Like, I remember around Christmas time, I was like, should I move and be closer? Because obviously I wanted to be there for everything, but my parents kept saying like, no, it's going to be fine. Don't let this like stop you from doing, what you're going to do. And, I understood that. And, I do, knowing what I do now, I would have traded. Yeah, I would have quit my team. I would have moved and like stayed there and done all that. But, like I said, during the first visit, towards the end of it, it did seem like he was getting better. And it was, I guess it was like a lot more sudden than like anyone really expected there. Yeah. So I guess in retrospect, 100%, I do regret flying back. I would have spent like every minute I could have, but I mean, also at the same time, it's like I was able to make it there before he did pass, actually. So, I was by his side. I was there. So it's not like I missed that. So, yeah.
I'm really happy at the very least you got that, because that's really important. Like, some people love that. And I'm really sorry for your loss. I can't imagine what you're going through with that. I mean,
it's enough time's passed where I've started, I guess, come more to terms with it. And it doesn't. It's not like, it's not like an everyday sort of thing where it's like, oh my God, it hurts so much. But it definitely, like I said, it's one of those things where it definitely comes and goes still. But I guess, they say time heals all wounds. And I guess it does get better as the days go on. But yeah, no, it's still hard.
A little bit of a happier question about your dad. Did he believe in the fucking moon landing or no? Because he didn't seem like it.
Don't make me answer.
Did he? He didn't believe in the fucking moon landing. I watched that and I was like, there's no way he believes in the fucking moon landing.
He would.
He doesn't.
He was always a skeptical guy, and it's not like he was like a flat earther or like that extent where it's like, it's not like he didn't trust science or any shit like that. But he always just stood by the with the technology they had, look at the shadows, all this other stuff. He definitely had like, and he's not someone who would like push it on others. No. So he wasn't some like asshole about stuff like that. But he was also
in the FBI for a long time. So I'm just saying, if anyone doesn't believe the fucking moon landing,
that's something that my brother and I would always like give him shit about because I believe in it, but it was always like a funny conversation to have with him about that, or like to try and get him like started on it. Like I remember for one of his birthdays, I got him like a moon rock or something like that. So it was always like a funny thing to do with stuff like that.
Oh my god!
When he came on my stream at the end of it, he had started to like go on about it, and I was like, "No, Dad, just you don't want to get Twitch chat started on that sort of thing."
Oh, I knew it. I knew he didn't believe it. I remember watching that and being like, there's no way. There's no way he fucking believes in this shit. He doesn't believe in the moon landing. It's fake. Oh.
It was always a funny thing, though, yeah. Bring up with him about it. I always thought it was funny.
Yeah, I thought it was. I knew that was going to be a nice question at the end because I was like, there's no way that he fucking does. Like,
yeah.
So that's actually, believe it or not, that's all my. I have one last question for you. I lied. I almost lied. I almost said I didn't. Okay, it's actually the easiest or hardest question, depending on who you are. So, I really want to say thank you for you coming on the show. It means a lot.
It had been a long time coming. What, 2 weeks or something? We got it figured out.
Yeah, it's been a while, and this won't release for a little bit because it's pre-recorded and I'm moving here soon. But I just want to thank you so much for being on here. I really appreciate it, and I think it takes a lot of courage to be able to talk about the things that are actually hard to talk about, like not just like there's these games that we lost.
There's definitely a few things I've talked about on this that I haven't really talked about before much. So even because when I stream, I don't like bringing up sad stuff all the time on stream or things like that, because again, people want to watch me, they want to have fun, which when I watch someone else stream, I normally want to watch see them have fun, so I try and provide the content, I guess, that I enjoy watching also. So
so I just want to thank you so much for being on the show for that. But the last question for you is, having had the experience being on the show, it's quite unique, I would say. If you could see anyone, the criteria are they have to be involved in esports and they have to speak English, because I'm uncultured and only speak English. Who would you like to see on this show?
Probably Numlocked. He's someone he was my teammate back on NRG. He might not be as big of a name necessarily as some of the other big streamers and whatnot out there, but he's had a pretty interesting story. He's an older guy. He's around my age. He was pro in Team Fortress 2, and he was pro in League of Legends for a bit. I know he played in Turkey or something. So he had a lot of crazy stories where none of his teammates spoke English. And so he's had a lot of interesting stories about that. And also just his progression he's taken through Overwatch, from being in a similar situation as me back on NRG to having to move back to Europe, to then now being on Envy, an academy team back in America. So he's had a very interesting path he's taken throughout the scene, and he's, I think, a really funny guy and really underrated with his stream and other stuff like that. So he for me personally, he has a lot of probably interesting stories to tell.
Awesome. I like that one. I think it's a good choice. So I want to thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate you taking the time. If you have any shout outs, you're more than welcome to have them. I don't normally give them, but if you want them, you can have them.
I guess shout outs to my parents, anyone who's watched me or supported me throughout my time in this. It's, I talked about before, it's still almost surreal to me, waking up most days and realizing this is kind of what I do, and knowing that there's a lot of people who would enjoy being in a similar situation. So shout out to them, shout out to you, I guess, for having me on. It's been a hot minute since I've done any sort of interviews, and especially one for being open and talking about stuff like this. But I think I think I definitely would say I enjoy doing it, and talking about some of this, I guess, feels good. So cool. So thank you also. But besides that, I got nothing else.
Okay. Well, for everyone out there, this has been Deep Dives in the Minds of Esports. My name is Blake Panashevitz, and until next time, I hope you all have a wonderful day.